The Malignant are relentless and without mercy. I need help. I need you.
Diablo 4's core content has plenty to keep you busy, but Blizzard's hard at work on making sure there's years of new adventures to come. Here with us today to explain what we can expect from Season of the Malignant, and maybe even some hints at what's to follow, Associate Game Director for Diablo 4, Joe Piepiora. Thanks for joining us, Joe.
Hi, Damon. It's great to be here. I'm excited to talk about Season of the Malignant. It's our very first season out the gate after Diablo 4's launch last month. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, so maybe to start, just what are sort of the major ways that Season 1 is going to change the Diablo 4 experience?
Sure. So let me just dive right in. So in Season 1, Season of the Malignant, the story is going to pick up immediately following the events of Diablo 4. And it's going to continue to tell the story of like the Wanderer. It's going to be kind of examining some new characters and some new situations. After the fallout of the events of Diablo 4, which I'm not going to describe just right now in case any of your viewers are interested in learning more about or still going through the story and figuring out what's finishing up the campaign, at the end of the event, the events of the campaign, they're going to be there's a new threat that's beginning to grow in Sanctuary. There's this malignance that's taking root in the hearts of creatures like goatmen, demons, like human beings, like bears, like everything is being corrupted by this new malignant essence that's starting to kind of like rip through people. And it's a pretty dangerous threat that's beginning. It's starting to like grow in an unchecked kind of way. Players are going to be meeting a new character, Cormund. Is it's going to be an ex-priest from the Cathedral of Light, who's turned his energies and efforts towards trying to end the threat of the malignant that they pose across Sanctuary as quickly as possible. But he's beginning to realize that he is a little outmatched, and that's really the moment when the player is going to come onto the scene. You know, the Wanderer is this person of great repute in Sanctuary at this point, and you're the perfect person to help in this situation because the threat is pretty dire. So that's the kind of baseline, the sorts of things that players begin to see the moment they start playing in Season 1 when it launches today, actually. I'm very excited about that. In terms of the things that change inside the season itself, the things that players can look forward to be a little bit different. When they make a new seasonal character, you're going to be able to jump into this new seasonal quest line involving Cormund and the events of the Malignant like immediately, right at the beginning of your first session. And you're going to start seeing that these malignant creatures, they're everywhere. There's new like local events. You'll see like signs of the malignants sort of cropping up in lots of different places throughout Sanctuary. Like you'll see these wormy little like outgrowths and things, and there's lots of these creatures roaming about. And as you confront these malignant creatures and slay them, you're going to be given the opportunity to actually like cage their heart. And this is a really neat new mechanic we're adding in Season 1. So all these malignant creatures fall into like a few different categories. You know, they're brutal, they're like these kind of like bluish, like brutal malignant creatures. There are these like oranges, like devious malignant creatures. And all of these creatures have a set of malignant hearts associated with them. And these hearts are basically legendary powers, like you might find like from legendary drops in the base game today. But these are all new powers for players to collect. There's 32 actually new legendary malignant heart powers for players to find. So as they go and they capture they kill these creatures and they capture the hearts after killing them, they're able to take these new legendary powers, these malignant hearts, and socket them into their jewelry. So into like amulets and their rings, and each of these things are going to have their own new socket colors associated with them that tie back to those malignant hearts they've been collecting. So you're kind of also looking for rings that might have the sort of socket colors you're looking for to like slot a devious heart into it. And these are, it's really cool. It's basically this way to get all these really exciting new like build-changing powers into the player's hands to really change the way that you're going to be looking at how you want to create your perfect, fire sorceress or your perfect bear druid. Like lots of new options and opportunities. We're excited to see players really play with those.
Yeah, it sounds like there's going to be a lot new to explore. I believe there's also a new boss, Varshan the Consumed. What do you have to say about him?
Well, you'll learn more about the threat of the Malignants and, of course, Varshan themselves as the player explores the storyline of Season 1, which, again, you get a chance to start in today. But I will say that there's basically two versions of this boss. So there's a version of this boss you'll fight as you're going through the quest line of Season 1, but there's an even more challenging version of that boss you'll fight in World Tier 4, in Torment Tier. And there's really, really great items that can drop off this like more powerful Uber version of Varshan when you get later into the in-game experience. So we're excited to see players who can literally throw themselves up and try to challenge this like more difficult version of this fight. But it's been a blast, like creating a new in season one, like creating our first new boss to add to the game experience. We're excited about like continue to extend this and do more of this in the future in future seasons. And Varshan's gonna be a fun challenge. And some of the most powerful hearts you can get in the game are going to be delivered by trying to confront Varshan, and that's gonna be a big challenge.
So when you were designing Varshan, did you incorporate anything that you learned from making the base game and like actually you were able to apply that to the season boss?
Absolutely. So every new like boss, every new encounter, every new dungeon, every new quest even that we create, we tend to take a lot of lessons from the things we've done before. So starting in season one, starting with Varshan, we knew that we wanted to create something that was going to have a lot of threat to different kinds of players. So if you're a more ranged player, a more melee focused player, we want to make sure that you feel equally threatened in both situations. We want to ensure that there's lots of chaos in the fight at various times as well. There's moments where like the other like malignant like hordes gonna like rise up around Varshan. You'll have to be contending with them at the same time as dealing with Varshan and his many attacks as well. So there's there and Varshan also is gonna be interacting with some of these kind of like malignant fodder that are showing up during the course of the fight in interesting ways and drawing power from them in turn. So there's lots of like cool little bits we get to play with and things that we developed as part of making the base game, making our epic act bosses in the campaign. We get to pull all of that information forward and start making these new creatures. And I'll tell you what, Varshan is a blast, but like we've got even more stuff planned in the future as well.
Well, speaking of that, how does season one sort of lay the groundwork for the content to come, especially the expansions?
Yeah, so the way that we think about developing and kind of continuing to build the world of Sanctuary, the world of Diablo 4, now that the game is launched, is we got two kind of different ways to talk to the players, right? Each of our seasons coming out once a quarter, are opportunities to tell really big new stories set in the world of Sanctuary, following the events of Diablo 4. Lets us introduce new characters and add these new fun mechanics and do all this really exciting stuff. But if you're looking for like, then in addition to those, we have like our expansion packs. And if you're looking for opportunities to learn more about like the major events of Sanctuary, like following on like the events of Diablo 4's main campaign, you want to learn more about what's happening next with those major characters. The expansions are where we continue to build upon the world and tell more of that story through each of those paid expansions in the future. So we have basically these two ways. So our seasons are ways for us to kind of like build upon the things that we've created already in the core of Diablo 4, create new stories, new threats, new monsters, mechanics. And we have our expansions coming out. We get to build way more on the world of Sanctuary, like start exploring new areas, introduce new characters, revisit old characters, and continue following the main story, the epic story of Diablo 4.
So with a roadmap like this that's so extensive for Diablo 4, how much room is there for adjustments to be made along the way based on player feedback?
Yeah, one thing I'm very proud of from working with this team in particular is, this is internally before the game launched. This team, the Diablo 4 team, has always been a very collaborative team. In that, like every artist and engineer, everyone feels very confident and capable of giving feedback on all different parts of the game. We have a lot of discussions internally on how things work. Everybody's just always talking about things we could do to improve the experience. So I think that's really important because the core team already has this idea of working in an iterative way and trying to like solicit the most feedback that we can from people around us. We already are used to working that way internally. So we've made a really good transition, I feel, to working with the community now that we're in a launch state. So over the course of the first few weeks of the game being live, we made a high number of hot fixes. We made like balance adjustments. We made gameplay adjustments, such as like recently a few weeks ago we made a change where we allowed players to instantly teleport to nightmare dungeon entrances, for example, upon using a nightmare sigil. And this is something that spoke to some core need from players that they were looking for just more efficient ways to get to some of these sorts of content experiences. And we realized there's ways that we can deliver this in a pretty good timeline. So the team has been working hard to ensure that we're responding to the things that players are saying. Where the things that we're not able to respond to immediately, we're getting planned, figuring out how to get those things out to players as soon as possible. It's been great, like kind of getting all of this feedback, because I mean, really the worst thing you could have like hear about your game is basically nothing. Because people aren't really asking for anything. There's not concerns about anything. Like now that we're getting a lot of this feedback, there's all kinds of things we could do to make the game better, and we're committed to doing that. We're trying to remain in a highly communicative state. Conversations like this one, in other places like in social media and in our own like our live streams that we do on occasion. want to make sure the players know that like we're working with them, we hear them, we're listening to feedback, and we're trying to make changes that they're going to be excited about.
So speaking of feedback, what steps are being taken to address player concerns about the drop rates for Uber Uniques, and what's your philosophy on having an item rarity tier like this in the game?
Right. So I think that this is a really good question, right? So Uber Uniques are these like extremely powerful items that can appear in Diablo 4, extraordinarily powerful items that can appear in Diablo 4, but they're also extraordinarily rare. So this is not a thing that players have been accustomed to in a lot of games of late. It's something we feel is really, really exciting. We want players, the moment that these things actually drop, we want that to be a fall out of your chair moment. We want that to be like a really critically important thing. One of the things that we think about when we're balancing these drops, thinking about these items in general, is if we make it so, let's say that over the course of like 10 hours, 5 hours even, you're guaranteed to get this item. What that really means is that item now becomes like kind of a mandatory piece of equipment that's required for your build to feel successful. So in order to make the cold enchantment sources for your dreams, you always need to have this particular item, right? We don't want these items to fall into that space. We want them to be these really extraordinary, massive bonuses on top of basically anyone's build that can occur on occasion. And when you get them, the character is just going to feel overpowered. They're going to feel very, very strong. That's kind of how they're balanced. As we've been looking at the feedback and seeing the how many of these have dropped for players around the world, we are thinking internally about the sorts of things we want players to be able to do, but we don't want players to feel that this is like very easy to go and like target farm them, because we don't want them to feel like they're kind of mandatory for your build to come online. Sure. These are the cherries and fun, exciting things for players to chase. We also don't want them to feel like they're so challenging you'll never ever see one as part of regular gameplay. So this is a back and forth, and we're having conversations internally on what we want to do here.
Well, as I'm sure you're aware, there's currently a giant hunt for a secret cow level in Diablo 4. Conspiracy theorists are combing the game for bovine content. I'm just curious, how does Blizzard feel about watching all this unfurl?
I mean, I think it's really interesting watching players kind of go through the world, like kind of looking for these sorts of things. I don't know what a cow level is, so I don't really understand the interest in it, because I get asked this a lot when I talk to people, and I just don't. Maybe I just don't get the reference. It just seems like there's a lot of stuff going on where the people are always asking about cows and they want to know about the cow level. And I don't know. What do you even mean? Like, what is this about?
Interesting. Well,
maybe you know, Damon. Like, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just curious. I'm just a curious observer. But there's another little detail. Another detail people are sort of exploring. You've heard by now that players are following rats for rewards. Do rats actually lead to good loot, or is this just a placebo that people have convinced themselves of?
I mean, is it really is it upon me to shatter the magic of following rats for treasure? The reality is that all creatures in our game are going to be wandering around trying to find things, and there's lots of places where you can find loot in Diablo 4. Maybe rats have a slightly higher chance to find loot than other creatures. I don't know.
Well,
I think it's an interesting question. It's an interesting question. Yeah.
One more interesting question, Joe. We here at IGN, we've been following one Diablo fan's experience of the game with particular interest. Whoopi Goldberg had some choice words for Blizzard on her Instagram recently. She was quite upset that Diablo 4 wasn't available for Mac. What was it like being sort of called out by the Whoopi Goldberg on social media?
Well, thankfully it wasn't me directly, right? But it is certainly an exciting moment for the team where we realize, like, oh, look, like there apparently lots of people play Diablo, and we all know this, but like it's always really heartening and heartwarming rather to see like a celebrity or someone as storied as Whoopi Goldberg coming in and demanding a particular kind of release. It was super fun, right? And it's something that the team talked about internally for weeks afterwards. So yeah, it was very, very cool. Sadly, I have no news for Whoopi Goldberg or anyone on that front just today.
Well, stay tuned for that. Joe, thank you again for taking the time to talk with us today. Diablo 4 Season of the Malignant is out now. Have fun out there.